This is Ryan Parker from the Killer Food Podcast at killerfood.me. You're listening to the one, the only, Dave Jackson on the School of Podcasting.
Today on episode number 327 of the School of Podcasting's morning announcements, I'm going to show you how you can cut your editing time by 70% and it's not going to cost you a dime.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to promoting to producing. We're going to talk a lot today about producing, monetizing, all points in between, because everything you need is in one place on the internet. You can go ahead and search Google, but you're probably going to find some stuff that's about 6 years old while you find the stuff that might be relevant. So why not save your time? Go to schoolofpodcasting.com. You'll also find my contact information and all our back catalog. I hope this podcast finds you well. I've had quite a fun-filled weekend. My dog, if you're a member of the School of Podcasting, occasionally my dog, Dudley, a little 9-pound Shih Tzu, who I've had for 14 years, is having major issues this weekend. So it's been kind of fun. But the good news is, after not being able to hold any food down for most of Friday and Saturday, today he's actually doing very well. I said turning around because it's weird because every time the dog moves now, I'm like, oh, is he going to throw up? So, hey, nice to meet you. Let's talk vomit, shall we? Let's get to our podcasting stuff. So if you hear me like moving around stuff, I'm very, you got to realize I am beyond attached to this dog. So I'm very worried about him, because if your dog gets dehydrated and they're 14, it's pretty much lights out. It can really mess things up. So anyway, I wanted to talk about, everybody likes free stuff, right? Free is always great fun. And that's why a lot of people use Audacity. And I use it off and on just to kind of keep my chops up. So if somebody has a question, and I am using Audacity version 2. As I record this, 2.02, which I believe is like the last stable version. It's not a beta version or anything like that. Very cool. And I just noticed this extra button on the right-hand side. If you kind of go across your menu bar, way over on the right-hand side, you'll see another green play button. If you put your mouse over that, you'll see it says play at speed. And there's this little knob there. Now, what's kind of weird about this is you can actually play your file back at a faster speed. And what's great about this, what this is useful for, are those times when, if you're like me, I occasionally stammer. If I have something that I know I want to go back later and edit out, a couple ways you can speed this up. Number one, have a notepad with you. And when you make an obvious mistake, number one, look at the clock and see what time. If you're using like a portable recorder, like right now, I am looking down and I've been talking for 2.5 minutes. So I could say, 2.5 minutes, edit point 1, something like that. The other thing you can do is, when you make a mistake, pause for something like 10 seconds. 10 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but when you are just talking and talking and talking, when you look at the wave and all of a sudden there's 10 seconds of space. Now, the other thing is 10 seconds is a long time. If you're sitting in a room staring at the wall, 10 seconds is a long time, but that makes it very easy to see where the mistakes are. So that's some ways you can speed things up. Because there are some times when you just, I'll give you an example. Earlier in this broadcast, as I was talking, I had one of those weird, I drank too much Mountain Dew kind of, and you're talking and all of a sudden, kind of whatever, it's not a burp, it's like a repressed burp or whatever. And so I just paused and continued on the sentence, and nobody's the wiser. I just cut it out. So what's great is sometimes you have these little things you want to take out, or maybe you want to listen to it, make some notes. And I've mentioned many, many, many moons ago that you can do this in Windows Media Player. You can go in and play things back. But what if you want to edit? Because what you would have to do in that case is you'd go back to Windows Media Player, take notes of where to edit, and then pull it up and do the edits. Well, what if I want to edit and listen fast at the same time? Well, again, in Audacity, in the upper right-hand corner, you have this play at speed button. So what's great about this is you can both speed things up, which is fun. And what I have found is if you get above 1.7, it gets pretty hard to distinguish what the person is saying. Because you can go up to 3 times fast, which just sounds ridiculous. Sounds like a little chipmunk type of situation. But about 1.7 is about as fast as I can go. 1.76 if we want to get specific. And I can actually listen. I can hear anything I need to edit out. I can stop and go in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is one tool. Now, the other thing you can do is you can actually slow things down. So if you wanted to, if this is something you're going to be doing show notes from, you can slow it down. Now, it makes you sound like Barry White, which is great fun. And half the audiences go, who's Barry White? I'll be like, oh, come on, baby. You don't know who Barry White is? He's awesome. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Anyway, and so here's a little of, let's play some clips. This is me sped up, again, using Audacity.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to promoting to producing. We're going to talk a lot today about producing, monetizing, all points in between, because everything you need is in one place on the internet. You can go ahead and search Google, but you're probably going to find some stuff that's about 6 years old while you find the stuff that might be relevant. So why not save your time? Go to schoolofpodcasting.com. You'll also find my contact information and all our back catalog.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much. Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to promoting.
All right. Now, the thing that's somewhat annoying about this feature, and it's really not a big deal, it's just battling a sense of habit, a force of habit. And that is, we are so used to pressing the green button on the left-hand side. And another great, it's a keyboard shortcut. Almost every audio editing program I use uses the space bar as a stop and start. If you didn't know that, it really comes in handy sometimes. And so we're so used to hitting either the space bar or the green button in Audacity in the upper left-hand corner to start and stop. This, you have to click the green button in the upper right-hand corner. Because if you hit start, it just thinks you're going to start it at the normal one time. So that's one way to do it. If you're an Audacity user, you can do that. Now, another free software that you can use is from a company called NCH Software. And this is actually a pretty cool program. Now, this is Audacity. You can do editing in it, but technically it's a multi-track program. You can have your voice, you can have music, you can have sound effects, whatever you want, hence multi-track, excuse me. And this WavePad is meant to edit one file. And you can go in, there's noise reduction, there's normalization, there is fade in, there's fade out. It's a pretty cool, especially for free, editing software. Now, there is a free version of WavePad. It's available for non-commercial use only. The free version does not expire and includes most of the features of the normal version. Yes, I'm reading this. If you are using it at home, you can download the free version here. You can always upgrade to the Master's Edition at a later time, which has additional effects and features for the serious sound engineer. And so it's a pretty cool program. And I consider myself, I guess, non-commercial. If you're at home and if you're not making any money, I guess you could consider yourself non-commercial. And I use another program, which I'll be talking about here in a second. But here's some things you can do that. You can create ringtones. You can trim sound bites out of longer audio files. You can reduce vocals from a music track. You can cut together audio for radio broadcasts for podcasts. You can record voiceovers for multimedia projects and restore audio files by removing noise, hiss, or hums. And you can normalize the level of audio files. This is a Windows kind of only thing. Works on Windows 7, XP, Vista, and 8. Also see Windows 98 and Windows 2000 for earlier versions. Also Mac OS X 10.3 or later. So there is a Mac version. I apologize, I didn't read down further enough. So here's now what this does, where the Audacity makes you a chipmunk. This you have two settings: play slower or play faster, and this is what it sounds like. Podcasting since 2005, I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, podcasting since 2005, I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you. And if you're looking for this software, it's at nch.com.au/wavepad. Or if you just go to schoolofpodcasting.com/327, I will have a link to it. So I like this program because it's free, number one. I've used it on and off, and it's kind of interesting when I was going through and kind of checking the resource section. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/links, I've got links to software and music and all this other stuff. And this was something that was in the old version of the links, and I completely forgot about this software and downloaded it and was messing around with it. I'm like, you know what? This is pretty cool. If you just want to do some quick editing and you don't want to have to worry about other tracks. And for me, sometimes Audacity is a little ugly, for lack of a better phrase, the way you have to select different tools and things like that. And I really like this software. And so if you want to check it out, again, I will have links to that out at the website, schoolofpodcasting.com/327. But using those two, you can definitely speed things up. Now, the other software that I use is called Sony SoundForge, and there are a couple different versions of this. I just use Audio Studio 10, and it goes for about $57. Speaking of this, if you want to buy the standard edition of WavePad, the non-free version, it was, I think, $55. Now, I like Sony SoundForge because it works with Sony Music Studio, and Sony Music Studio is the PC software that I recommend when you are, if you don't want to use Audacity. It's very stable, very easy, and I'm a big fan of having music fade in and out of the background because it's very easy to just drag and drop a line. You can adjust your volume that way. So that's why I've always liked Sony Music Studio, even though I use Adobe Audition. For many, many, many moons, I used Sony Music Studio. I also used a thing called Mixcraft back in the day, like 2005. But since then, I've been using Sony Music Studio if I was not using Audition. I just happened to fall into Audition, to make a long story short, because that's like a $300 program. And so SoundForge and Music Studio work very nicely together to where you can be in Music Studio and you've got your music and your sound effects and your voice, and then you want to edit something, you can easily grab a track, say pop it into SoundForge, edit it, and then save it back into Music Studio. So there, he said, hitting the microphone. There are two different ways, two different programs there. One is more focused on editing out ums and your nose and noise reduction and volumizing. I just made up a new word. Normalizing your volume, called volumizing. And so that is more of what SoundForge does. Music Studio can take that, and it has some great tools as well. It's got compression and noise gates and things like that. And then it mixes all down to one. So that's now the thing I like about SoundForge is it has this cool button. Again, you can play things faster, slower, but it has a little slider. So I can actually grab this slider, move things forward a little bit, have it fast forward, and then let go. It'll go back to normal speed. So it's kind of a great little button. And to the best of my knowledge, this is not an option anywhere, at least in I think I have Adobe Audition 4. And so unless it's in the new version, there's no way to speed it up. The other thing I hate about Adobe Audition, and I occasionally go back and try to find it, is if I'm doing something in Audition and I click on another program, it doesn't keep playing. Adobe Audition requires your undivided attention, where if I'm doing Audacity or something and I'm listening, I can click on something and start writing show notes and listen and then edit and do whatever I want. Adobe Audition, the minute I go to another program, it stops. And I find that very, very annoying. So here's a little sample of what you can do with Sony SoundForge. Podcasting since 2005.
I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the show, this is where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning to promoting to producing. We're going to talk today about producing, monetizing, all points in between, because everything you need.
truth on the internet. You can go ahead and search Google, but you're probably
going to find some stuff that's about 6 years old
while you find the stuff that might be
relevant. So why not
save your time? Go to schoolofpodcasting.com.
You'll also
find my contact information
and all our back
catalog.
So there you can hear me moving the slider around, and you can go really, really bizarre. Extreme Barry White on that. And like I said, that is $57. So if you are a person, now, the first thing I guess I should probably say is you don't have to edit your podcast. Because you can go way overboard with that, trying to take out every and and if there's an empty space or things like that. I mean, you can really overdo it with that. So that would be first rule number one. But if you are a person, I typically, a lot of it depends on how much time I have. And I kind of know when I get done recording a podcast, yeah, that one's going to need a little editing. Did I have the burps when I was recording? And things of that nature. I need to go back and listen and maybe cut those out. And if so, it really helps if I can listen at a faster speed.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Parker, host of the Killer Food Podcast. If you are interested in podcasting yourself, I urge you to use theschoolofpodcasting.com. Dave Jackson has a quick start program that will get you producing your podcast in record time. With Dave's Quick Start program, you can save $367. It is easy to do. Simply email dave@schoolofpodcasting.com with Quick Start in the subject line. Here's what you get. A 30-day pass to the School of Podcasting. Dave will also set up and install the plugins you need on WordPress. He'll send you a link to order your podcast hosting. You'll also receive email support for any questions you might have. And if needed, a live 30-minute virtual consultation so you can finalize your podcast settings. The Schoolofpodcasting.com is your one-stop place to get the tools you need to create your podcast. Get started today.
Thank you so much, Ryan. You can find him at killerfood.me. And this is a guy, again, following his passion. He's a chef, he's a coach, educator, he does TV, radio, he's a speaker, and now he's a podcaster. And again, you can find him at killerfood.me. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying everybody's, I'm not asking for those. People just keep sending those in. And I think it's because I said by trade, I'm a trainer. I'm a corporate trainer. I help people understand and discover the power of technology. And I said, I just don't think I'm that good at pimping myself. So it's now Ryan's the second person that said, hey, I'll pimp you. Just kick back and let me do it. So Ryan, thank you very much. If you want to pimp me and pimp yourself while you're at it, I appreciate that. It's my little plug for me in the podcast. Next up, a little podcasting news. I wanted to relay a story here. And this was from journalism.co.uk. And it talked about how Nate Langsom, who was from wired.co.uk, they have a podcast and it's grown to 20,000, their audience. And he said, here are some samples, tips, I guess we could say, some sample tips of how they've built their audience. Number one, they have 95 episodes, not 6, not 10, 95 episodes it took to get that audience. They do weekly roundtable discussions, and it says they get between 20,000 and 30,000 downloads per week. The show is not scripted, and in this case, Nate and his co-presenters, what they do is they do not go through the topics beforehand. They're just going to go in and they talk. And it's interesting because we haven't recorded our first episode yet, but my wife and I are going to do one called Healing Our Marriage. And it was funny the other day because we started talking about something. I said, oh, wait a minute, hold on, save it for the podcast. So I think it's going to be a new phrase at the Jackson home, which will be save it for the podcast. But they've actually gone through a couple revisions since they started. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes you think this is going to be a great idea and you throw it on the wall and guess what? It just don't stick. And you're like, so maybe you get some emails from people, you ask some of your listeners and they go, well, we kind of wish you did this. Oh, okay. And it goes back, there's an old saying that super great, phenomenal ideas usually are not on their first try. It's usually somebody comes up with a good idea and they go, ooh, that's good, but I wish it did that. And somebody else will go, ooh, but what if it did that? And that person will go, oh, you know what would be even better? And so that first original idea, which actually was a good idea, gets built on and built on and built on. And according to the article, it said it takes them about 3 hours a week to do their podcast. They do have 4 condenser microphones. Now, me personally, I would recommend dynamic microphones. Condenser microphones tend to pick up everything. And it goes into a Behringer mixer. So they're not using Heil PR40s, the Heil PR40, because not everybody has $600 for a microphone. And now, with that said, I almost bought a Heil PR40 this week. I was so close. And it says their podcast is currently distributed via iTunes. It's on their website, and it's also in the BlackBerry. It's, obviously this is Wired the magazine, so they're promoting it as well, which some of you might say, well, that's not fair. They got a magazine to promote their podcast. But nonetheless, you have to have good content. I mean, their magazine could say, hey, we've got a podcast, but if it was awful, nobody'd be listening to that, right? Now, some other things they said you should experiment to begin with. And don't necessarily think, again, that your first idea for a podcast is going to be the best idea. And then the last one, it's easy to make a podcast. I love this quote. It's easy to make a podcast. It's not easy to make a good one. But money doesn't necessarily, determine the deciding factor. So they spent around $500 for their entire setup. And I realize $500 is a chunk of change. But compared to going into a major recording studio where you're spending thousands of dollars per microphone, you can make very listenable audio by spending, I always say it's the price of an Xbox if you're doing a solo podcast. So I thought that was some great tips on how they've now getting 20 to 30,000 downloads per week after doing 95 shows. Now, if they do one a week, it's almost 2 years. So if you've only been doing a podcast for 3 months and you're going, why am I not on the cover of Oprah magazine? Sit tight, keep making, I can't wait till this podcast is out type of material, and promoting your podcast, letting people know where it's at. Encourage your audience to tell the world about your podcast. But I thought it was a great article. I've got links to this out at the School of Podcasting. I'll have links again in the show notes. schoolofpodcasting.com/327. Quickly do want to mention, again, schoolofpodcasting.com/327. Can I say that any faster? schoolofpodcasting.com/327. And I'll have links out there to the Podcast Awards and the Stitcher Awards. If you would like to nominate me, I would be deeply, deeply grateful for that. It would make me feel warm and fuzzy all over, I'm pretty sure. And I want to thank Fred. We'll be hearing from Fred here in a second when we get into our voicemail section. I think Eileen said she was going over to vote from basicblogtips.com, and I appreciate that as well. So, again, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com/327. I'll put a link there where you can go over and nominate this show. This show probably fits in the technology category, which I realize I'm not going to beat Leo Laporte, but it could be cool to say, nominated for 2012 Podcaster Award or nominated for a Stitcher Award. It would be cool if somehow I got in the running. All right, last up before we get into the mailbag, one of the things, again, that we talk about is in some cases you may want to make money with your podcast. And I found, again, there's a lot of free stuff today because I realize we all like the word free. And if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/easy digital downloads, that's schoolofpodcasting.com/easy digital downloads. And it'll take you over. This is a free plugin that you can actually sell, as you might imagine, digital downloads. So what some people are doing, Mark Maron, now Jay Moore, both comedians, is you get X amount of free episodes in your podcast. And if you create evergreen material, meaning it's not a news show, because who wants to hear, last September, trees were on fire. Well, that's not very helpful today. So if you have evergreen content, it's a way that you can, if you want, sell your back catalog. And you don't have to. Some people just like to have their back catalog. All my back catalog is free. So if you want to go listen to show number 1, it's really awful, but you can. And I think I have 50 in the feed. So if you wanted to sell that, if you wanted to sell an ebook, if you want to sell all this stuff, it's a free plugin. And I've got a video, again, out at the website, schoolofpodcasting.com/327. Now, I'm doing something that I normally don't do. I watched the video on this. I've read other reviews. I haven't installed it yet. So I normally don't do that. I normally test it out, but I watched the video. And from what I've seen, I've gotten some pretty good, accurate reports from people. So I feel fairly confident in saying, yeah, this looks pretty cool. So if you're a person that's looking to sell digital downloads, you can do this. Now, why it's free is I believe you can sell things via PayPal for free. But let's say you wanted to use Amazon services, or there are some other kind of oddball services that I'd never heard of. And those, he has a way, the plugin designer has a way to use those, but it's like $10, $15 for this or that. And so if that's something you're looking to do, it's a great way to do it. And you can play with it for free. Again, schoolofpodcasting.com/easy digital downloads. Next up, want to go to the mailbag. And Fred Castaneda from The Struggling Entrepreneur, we're talking about making sure that you get things in writing. We had the episode where the one person, my co-host, is a jerk. And Fred reminded me that we were in a podcast. We're going to launch a podcast with 2 other people. And Fred is a great project manager. If you go over to Gain Control of Your Day, he's got a great program there. And so Fred laid the whole thing out, actually had a lawyer involved, and brought it to everyone saying, this is what's going to happen with this project. And to the point where eventually when people saw exactly what it was going to take to do this, some of them dropped out. And so it was a great example. In fact, here Fred's going to explain the whole thing.
One of the things that you may recommend to your audience is what we did. Right even before the discussions and agreements were set about, hey, let's do this and let's make it happen, we actually had an attorney brought in, and we had a video conference with the attorney, and audio conference, and you were participating in that, where we basically went over what the business was going to be, how it was going to be run, divided, and what the profits were going to be like, as well as what the responsibilities and rights were of everybody. And the most important thing is what you were alluding to. It's called exit strategy. What happens when you exercise your exit strategy? Number 1, what is your exit strategy? We went into this with excruciating detail. And then after the meeting that we had, the attorney took everything and was going to start drawing up a draft of the agreement. Everybody had 2 weeks to think about what was there. It was recorded so they could go over and listen to the conversation that we had to review any details. And after 2 weeks, they could come back and say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't, and could even bow out of the agreement altogether. If you remember, we did that. And 2 of the parties said, no, I don't think I want to do this. Well, once they saw the devil in the details. Then after the parties that survived, let's say, that resulted wanting to do this, then the attorney would draw up the agreement draft, and he would send it to everybody so that they can review it. And, of course, this is done so that you can take it to your own personal attorney if you want, or have an attorney review it and recommend things to you that you should be putting in it. And so everybody could come back 2 to 3 or 4 weeks later and say, no, I want this clause in there. I want to take care of this, or I want to deal with this issue in this way. So everybody can input their feedback. And then if there are a lot of changes, you come back to, again, a conference call, and everybody agrees to all the issues there. Once they're resolved in conference, the attorney who is present takes this down, records it, and draws up another draft. And hopefully that will be the final draft, because everybody's issues are on paper. They get it back, and in 2 weeks after they get it, they sign it. And then that's how the agreement is drawn up, even before the project begins.
Thank you, Fred. And if you want to hear that episode about my co-host is a jerk, go over to schoolofpodcasting.com/326. That is going to do it for this week's episode as I look over, and the dog is asleep, so that's a good sign. He actually had some more water, so things are turning up. So thank you so much for I had mentioned this on Facebook, and a couple of people had said, oh, don't worry, he'll be fine. So thank you so much for that. If you are looking to start a podcast, there are, we have the tutorials, we have the resources, and you've got little old me to help you discover the power of podcasting. And all you have to do is go over to schoolofpodcasting.com, click on the Join Now button, and you can actually use the coupon code. This is not on the website. Use the coupon code LISTENER, and you'll save on that first month. And if you'd like to contact me, my email is dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments, 888-563-3228. You can click on the send voicemail button out of the website, or leave a comment out on our website, which, of course, is schoolofpodcasting.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you're enjoying the fall here in Ohio. The leaves are beautiful. And before you know it, the snow is going to fly. Scary. But thanks so much for tuning in. Let me remind you, and I'm just going to throw this in real quick. I had a friend of mine this week that died at the age of 55. And so I used to say this as kind of a sign-off, but I'm going to say it today in memory of my friend Glenda Orman, who found out she had cancer in July and died in October. So I highly recommend that you start living a life worth podcasting about, because you never know when your number is going to get called. So thanks so much for listening. God bless. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the School of Podcasting's Morning Announcements. Now go sign up.